market master Emily Longnecker Rainier. What began as a poultry auction a century ago has become a staple of Lancaster County's heritage. As Roots Country Market celebrates 100 years in business, I thank the family and their standholders for making our community a vibrant place. Congratulations to Roots Country Market, and I wish them another century of success. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to congratulate and recognize the 3 individuals from Pennsylvania's 11th Congressional District who were installed as 2025 to 26 state officers for the Pennsylvania FFA. State President Sarah Firestone, State Vice President Sarah Bollinger, and State Secretary Leah Flinchbach. Having emerged from a vigorous nomination and election process, a total of 7 state officers were chosen to lead the Pennsylvania FFA this year. 3 of the 7 individuals belong to chapters in Pennsylvania's 11th Congressional District. Sarah Firestone, the new president, is a member of the Garden Spot FFA chapter and a graduate of Lampeter-Strasburg High School. The new vice president, Sally Bollinger, a member of the Cloister FFA chapter and graduate of Ephrata High School. And the new secretary, Leah Flinchbach, a member of the Eastern York FFA chapter and graduate of Eastern York High School. Agriculture is crucial to Lancaster and York counties, and the newly elected officers have demonstrated both passion and knowledge of our local community. I commend Sarah Firestone, Sally Bollinger, and Leah Flinchbach for their leadership in the Pennsylvania FFA. As they settle into their new roles and prepare for bright futures ahead, I wish them continued success in all of their endeavors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Chu, for 5 minutes.
One year ago today, the communities of Altadena and Pasadena that I represent in California were struck by tragedy. In just a matter of hours, the Eaton fire, driven by hurricane-force winds reaching 90 miles an hour, forever changed the communities my constituents have called home for generations. The fire destroyed over 9,000 structures, most of them single-family homes. It scorched over 14,000 acres, decimating entire neighborhoods and turning places of worship, schools, restaurants, and community institutions to rubble. And most tragically, it took the lives of 19 of our loved ones, neighbors, and friends. We have recently learned that 440 additional people across Southern California died in the month following the fire due to delays in medical care and exposure to toxic elements. The Eaton fire was the second most destructive wildfire in California's history. Those we lost helped to shape the fabric of their communities, and their absence has left a void that cannot be filled. They are in our thoughts on this one-year anniversary of the fire. We remember Anthony Mitchell Sr., a 68-year-old father, grandfather, and great-grandfather who brought everybody together. And we remember his son, Justin, who was born with cerebral palsy and was known for his infectious smile. Anthony and Justin both died waiting for help that they would never receive. We remember Victor Shaw, who resided in his beloved Altadena home for 60 years and who died with a garden hose in his hand fighting to save his property. These are just a few of the stories of those we lost, all of whom were taken far too soon, and that is why today I have introduced a resolution with Representative Sherman and Senators Schiff and Padilla to commemorate and honor all the lives that we lost in these fires. But even in the darkest days and every day since, survivors have shown extraordinary resilience and strength. First responders put their lives on their lines to save others. Neighbors opened their doors to offer shelter to those who had nowhere to go. Organizations, big and small, came together to make sure our neighbors who had just lost everything had a warm meal, a roof over their head, and a shoulder to cry on. And federal, state, and local governments mobilized to get families the help they needed, help that has made a tremendous impact on our road to recovery and rebuilding. Emergency operation hubs were propped up in a matter of hours. Recovery centers were created at an amazingly rapid speed so that survivors could access free individualized guidance and assistance when they needed it most. And on top of that, FEMA approved over $150 million in housing and other emergency assistance. SBA approved over $3 billion in loans for small businesses, homeowners, and renters. And the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers did an amazing, fast residential wildfire cleanup. It was the fastest in our nation's history. These efforts saved lives and laid the groundwork for recovery, but the work is nowhere close to being complete. And every day that Congress and the Trump administration continue to delay, recovery becomes harder and more expensive. Families have already waited a year while rebuilding costs rise, housing shortages deepen, and displacement assistance expires. Disaster aid is not a favor, it is a responsibility. Today, 70% of Eaton fire survivors have not yet returned home, and the majority have not even begun the arduous process of rebuilding. Almost half of survivors still reside in either temporary or unstable housing. Families are exhausting their savings, taking on debt, skipping medical care, and making impossible choices just to get by. Small businesses are struggling to reopen, and families whose homes are still standing but are contaminated with dangerous toxins are being forced to decide between a place to sleep and their health. Survivors need our help, and they need it right now. And that is why I say something very important. President Trump and congressional Republicans must fulfill their responsibility to help communities impacted by disaster and fully deliver Governor Newsom's $34 billion disaster supplemental request with no strings attached. I've joined Democrats and Republicans across California in urging the administration to act immediately. Families can't afford further delay. We do not abandon people
The
after
gentlewoman's
disaster.
time has expired.
And I yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Colorado, Ms. DeGette, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Right now, we have a chance to protect Americans from going broke. On January 1st, families across the country were hit by the largest healthcare cost increases we've seen in more than a decade. Millions of Americans watched their premiums more than double overnight. A family of 4 making $128,000 a year, teachers, nurses, small business owners, just got slapped with an average $14,000 increase in their silver premium plans. As the senior Democrat on the Health Subcommittee of Energy and Commerce, I've been raising this issue along with my colleagues for many months now, but despite the warnings, President Trump and congressional Republicans did nothing. They could have had a vote in December, but yet they blocked Democratic efforts to extend the Affordable Care Act's enhanced premium tax credits. They looked Americans in the eye and they said no. But we have an opportunity to fix this right now. This week, we can pass the bill that would extend the ACA's premium tax credits for 3 years. This extension will cut premium spikes by 80% on average. It will wipe out increases for lower-income families, and it will save over 5 million Americans from losing their insurance. This is the solution. We have it in our hands. And while this is a straightforward fix for the short term, we know that our entire healthcare system needs to have reform so that we can control costs. I was part of the original team that negotiated and passed the Affordable Care Act. While we were forced to accept less than the universal health care plan we wanted, we secured protections that have since saved tens of thousands of lives, ending discrimination against people with pre-existing conditions, letting parents keep their kids on their insurance policies while the kids start their career, guaranteeing that every plan covers basic essential care. The majority, since that time, in the last 15 years, has tried to destroy it. They have voted more than 70 times to repeal the Affordable Care Act, and always with no replacement. 70 times. They've subjected the ACA to death by 1,000 cuts, offering nothing but snake oil alternatives like high-deductible plans and health savings accounts that would leave families high and dry. When we passed the ACA on this floor, I said, this is just a start to affordable universal health care. Democrats have worked to improve the ACA. That's why we passed the tax credits in the first place. Millions of people signed up, and they were able to sleep without worrying about one hospital visit bankrupting their family. My colleagues on the other side want to rip that away for reasons I have no idea. This crisis has shown the only solution is ultimately universal health care. I've been a co-sponsor of the Medicare for All Act since day one because I know it will guarantee a healthy nation. Unfortunately, my colleagues across the aisle have made it crystal clear they have no appetite for meaningful reforms like Medicare for All. So here's what we need to do right now. We need to extend the enhanced tax credits. They're the only thing standing between millions of Americans and complete financial devastation. In my state of Colorado, we did the right thing. The state stepped in with our own tax credit, but not every state is Colorado. Americans in states like Florida and Texas will be out of luck. And in Colorado and every other state, we can't afford to take this burden on forever. We need a nationwide solution. And we have the votes for this fix. 4 Republicans joined us in the petition to bring this bill to the floor. We must pass it, bring it to the floor, pass it in the House, and send it over to the Senate this week. And President Trump must sign it into law. If we don't, here's the reality. Families will drop health coverage to put food on the table, gambling with their lives. Medical debt will bury them, bill by bill, week by week. They'll keep waiting for the Trump health care plan that will be promised but will never come. For anybody at home sitting there asking, do the Republicans know what they're doing? The answer is, sadly, yes, they do. Americans are watching. They know that the Democrats are fighting like hell for them and for their health care. Now they're waiting to see if the majority has any conscience left. It's time to vote yes.
Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the chair declares the House in recess until noon today.
On this day. Signed, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to the order of the House of January 6, 2026, the chair will now recognize members from the list submitted by the majority and minority leaders for the morning hour debate. The chair will alternate recognition between the parties, with time equally allocated between the parties and each member other than the majority and minority leaders and the minority whip limited to 5 minutes, but in no event shall debate continue beyond 11:50 a.m. The chair recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Kennedy, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, with just 24 days left before open enrollment closes in New York State and with millions of New Yorkers facing massive premium hikes, I rise today in outrage. As an occupational therapist, I spent more than a decade working on the front lines of our healthcare system, helping patients and their families when an unexpected illness, injury, or disability turn their world upside down. I've seen the devastation that happens when people delay care because they can't afford it. Patients ration medications, skip follow-up visits, delay essential care, and choose between putting food on the table or seeing a doctor. When health care is out of reach, outcomes get worse, costs go up, and working families pay the price. That is exactly what is happening right now because Republicans have allowed the Enhanced Affordable Care Act premium tax credits to expire. When the Affordable Care Act was enacted in 2014, it made health insurance more affordable and expanded access to care, putting health care within reach for millions of Americans. In 2021, Democrats built on that progress by expanding those credits through the American Rescue Plan, closing coverage gaps that left middle-class families paying far too much for far too long. In 2022, Democrats passed the Inflation Reduction Act to extend these essential enhancements through 2025. As Democrats, our priorities are clear. When we lead, we fight for working people. We fight to expand access to care, and we fight to make sure every American can afford the care that they need. It's a very different story under failed Republican leadership. After years of trying to undermine the Affordable Care Act, congressional Republicans chose, on December 31st, to let these life-saving premium tax credits expire, even over the objections from members of their own party. For families already struggling to make ends meet, the consequences are immediate and devastating. Marketplace premiums have skyrocketed by an average of 114%, and these plans cost more and cover less. Enrollment will plummet, and millions of Americans will lose or forego coverage entirely. In New York, thousands will lose their marketplace-purchased health insurance, with hundreds of thousands more facing staggeringly high costs. Young people and communities of color will be hardest hit, reversing years of progress in 4 consecutive years of record-high Affordable Care Act enrollment. And as this is happening, at a moment when the cost of living crisis is already crushing working families, the people of this country are saying enough is enough. This crisis did not happen by accident. Donald Trump and congressional Republicans chose tax breaks for the wealthy over affordable health care for everyday Americans. They pushed through the largest health care cuts in U.S. history, gutting Medicaid, Medicare, and the Affordable Care Act by more than $1 trillion. Now, instead of fixing the damage, Republican leadership is once again choosing to turn its back on families by letting these premium tax credits expire, a lifeline millions of Americans rely on to stay insured. When people lose coverage, they don't stop getting sick. They just stop getting care. And we all pay the price through worse outcomes, higher costs, and deeper inequities. Over the past year, many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have reminded us that elections have consequences. Well, I'm here to remind them that this fight transcends politics. Ripping away health care from hardworking Americans has life or death consequences. That is why Democrats have forced a vote to extend these credits this week. And that's why I intend to vote yes, because health care should not depend on your zip code, your job title, or the size of your paycheck. This fight is about priorities. It's about choosing care, dignity, and security for families instead of policies that push health care out of reach. Let's get this done. Let's take care of the American people. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Thompson, for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to mark the end of an era. The oldest newspaper in Clinton County, Pennsylvania, ceased operations on December 31st. After 154 years of delivering the news, the weekly Clinton County Record, formerly known as the Renovo Record, has stopped publishing due to escalating costs, a declining subscription base, and a lack of advertisers. Despite these challenges, it has a long and storied past in history that began in 1871 when Renovo businessman John Upton Schaefer founded the Renovo Daily Record and published its first edition. The first issue of the Record noted that the letters for the printing press had not been delivered in their entirety until the previous day. The first half of the alphabet, from A through M, had arrived the previous week, but the first issue and nearly had to go to press without the second half of the alphabet. Fortunately, the rest of the letters were delivered in a time for publication. Back then, it was the daily paper, except Sunday, bring news to those who lived in the railroad town. In 1887, Schaefer was elected to the Pennsylvania State Legislature, and his son, John Schaefer Jr., took over the management of the newspaper. The elder Schaefer died in 1902, and his sons continued publishing. Since 1871, the Record has been 100% independently owned and operated with notable local names publishing the paper after the Schaefers, including Ron Dremel, John Lopez, and most recently, Michael Frank. The newspaper covered local news, education, government, sports, and more. This is a devastating loss to the community that has relied on this paper since 1871. In 2021, on its 150th anniversary, the Record had a special print edition. This year, on its final publication, I was pleased and honored to have it reported that Bucktail Medical Center in Renova would receive more than $260,000 in federal funding to bring important upgrades to the facility, and I was honored to secure that funding. Mr. Speaker, it is never easy when we see our local institutions close, especially those that have played such an important role in our communities like the Record has over the past 154 years. My heartfelt thanks goes out to the staff who have worked diligently over the years to deliver the news to the people of Clinton County. For 154 years, through generations of change, the Record has been there, and we are all grateful for that. Mr. Speaker, this morning those are in the chamber, and perhaps those that are viewing in to see, we're missing an individual who has always been here at morning session, at noon first minutes, maybe after votes first minutes, a dear friend, Doug Lamoffa from California. Doug passed away yesterday. And in honor of him, as tradition has, we have reserved a seat, a memorial seat, in the first speaking position on the Republican side. And Doug was a great friend, a great agriculture leader, a champion for forestry and rural communities. We really traveled the country preparing for the farm bill that we've been working on, half of it being accomplished, another half to go. And he just a rice farmer, been on his farm in Northern California, kind of a crazy muscle car driver, I can tell you that. Hung on tight riding with Doug. But Doug has left his mark. Our prayers go out to Jill and his family. Later this week, we'll have other opportunities where members on both sides of the aisle, I think, will be offering their tributes and memories to Doug. And so just, Doug, I just want to say, rest easy in the arms of God. We've got this. Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
The chair recognizes the member from Delaware, Representative McBride, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to celebrate that paid family and medical leave officially began in Delaware on January 1st. There is nothing that I am prouder of during my time in the Delaware State Senate than leading the successful effort to pass paid family and medical leave for workers and families across our state. After years of work and preparation, Delaware's paid family and medical leave program is finally a reality across our state. Paid family and medical leave is about dignity. Plain and simple. It means a parent can be there for their newborn child, a worker can recover from severe illness, and a caregiver can support an aging parent. All of this without falling behind on groceries or rent. Paid leave will strengthen families, support small businesses, and make our state more affordable for the people who live and work in it. I was proud to work with my colleagues in the state legislature to pass this bipartisan achievement. Proof that when we listen to one another and focus on solutions, we can deliver for our constituents, something this chamber would do well to remember. I'm incredibly proud of the work that we have accomplished in Delaware. I'm grateful to all of the advocates who made this progress possible, including the Delaware Cares Coalition led by Liz Richards. And I will continue working to ensure paid family and medical leave is not just the law of the land in Delaware, but nationwide. Because good policy that is grounded in dignity, supported by a supermajority of Americans, is precisely the sort of work that we should be doing together. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the life and legacy of Corporal Grade 1 Matthew Tyler Ty Snook. On December 23rd, just 2 days before Christmas, Ty Snook was shot and killed while working an overtime assignment at the DMV just outside of Wilmington. Corporal Snook served the state of Delaware as a trooper for a decade, known by his peers and his community as a dependable, professional, and committed neighbor. His death is a tragic reminder of the sacrifice that our law enforcement officers risk every single day to protect and defend us. At his memorial earlier this week, his loved ones painted a picture of Ty as a spectacular father, husband, son, and brother, a thoughtful friend, and an empowering colleague. Every speaker struck a similar chord. Ty was selfless and compassionate, deeply invested in the well-being of others. And that's a commitment to community that can be seen throughout his service. A native Delawarean, he was a graduate of St. Mark's High School and returned after college to serve in the Delaware State Police, where he was soon joined in that service by his brother Josh. Ty was rising through the ranks and training the next generation of law enforcement. And the selflessness that defined his service was tragically on full display on December 23rd, when in his final moments, Ty saved others even as he lost his own life. Let us never become numb to senseless acts of violence like the one which took Ty Snook's life. Crimes like this one leave an indelible mark of pain and loss felt by so many, including his friends, family, his wife Lauren, and their 1-year-old daughter Letty. Cassie Snook Dunphy, Tyler's sister, said it best on Monday. Quote, "Tyler did not just pass on as a hero. He lived every day as one. Every day I am thankful to the men and women of law enforcement like Tyler who risk everything in defense of all of us. And today I speak in this hallowed chamber in honor of that hero, so that the name and service of Matthew Tyler Ty Snook will be enshrined in the history and record of the United States Congress forever." Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Minnesota, Ms. Fishbaugh, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor and recognize the distinguished career of Mary Krinke. For 25 years, Mary has served as the Vice President of Government Relations at the Minnesota Hospital Association. She is widely regarded as one of the most persuasive voices for Minnesota's healthcare systems and patient care. I have had the honor to work with her on various issues, both here in Congress and in the Minnesota State Senate. Her dedication to the healthcare community has left a permanent mark on Minnesota. Thank you, Mary, for your decades of service, and I wish you a long, happy, and well-deserved retirement. Mr. Speaker, today I rise to recognize a distinguished member of the Minnesota agriculture community. I offer my congratulations to Dick Peshek of Taunton, Minnesota, who has been named the Minnesota 2025 Cattleman of the Year. This honor is well-deserved recognition of his decades of hard work, dedication to the livestock industry, and deep commitment to his community. We commend Mr. Peshek for upholding the best traditions of American agriculture. Mr. Speaker, today I rise to congratulate Jillian Schoenfeld and Braden Van Dyke from Russell Tyler Ruthton High School for their first place finishes at the FFA Winter Leadership Summit. Jillian placed first in the employment skills competition, and Braden placed first in the English Creed speaking event. Their hard work and commitment are a credit to their school and their community. Congratulations on your victories. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Oregon, Ms. Bonamici, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to express my profound opposition to this administration's aggressive and cruel immigration enforcement actions, especially targeting students and parents near schools. Throughout the last year, the Trump administration's hardline immigration enforcement campaign has terrorized communities and created an environment where many students don't even feel safe going to school. Children can't learn when they are living in constant fear. At a town hall meeting last year, a fourth grade student, a 10-year-old, gave me a handwritten letter saying she was afraid that ICE was going to come into her school and take her friends. Children may not understand the complexities of the immigration system, but they know that masked people indiscriminately kidnapping people off the street is wrong and terrifying. In July, a Beaverton, Oregon father was dropping off his child at preschool. With his child in the car, ICE surrounded him, traumatizing the child, other parents, and preschool teachers. ICE then arrested the father within sight of the school. In October, two Oregon high school students were at a drive-through coffee shop near their school. They were surrounded by multiple ICE agents who were pointing guns at them. That's terrifying, outrageous, and obviously dangerous. And at a recent city council meeting, an Oregon high school student bravely shared his concerns and the concerns of his peers, especially those who could not speak up for themselves because they're too afraid. This compassionate student has been raising money to help people in his community whose lives are being torn apart by this administration's immigration enforcement tactics. And Mr. Speaker, hundreds of students across Northwest Oregon have bravely protested the ongoing immigration enforcement happening in their communities, and I'm grateful for their acts of peaceful protest to call attention to these injustices. The reality is that too many students are afraid to leave their homes, even to go to school. And at a time when chronic absenteeism is at a record high, more students are switching to attending school online if they can because they don't feel safe, or they've stopped going altogether. A small school district in Northwest Oregon told me that more than 150 students have withdrawn this year, an increase of 120 since this time last year. It's likely that most of them left school because they're afraid of ICE. Statewide, it's estimated that more than 10,000 students are now unaccounted for. Recently, the Department of Homeland Security claimed that the media is force-feeding the public stories about parents and children being scared to return to school. This is categorically untrue. Despite what the Department of Homeland Security wants people to believe, ICE is creating significant levels of fear, including around schools. Mr. Speaker, this is not about targeting criminals. It's about targeting, arresting, and detaining people because of their national origin or their color of their skin. This ought to send chills down the spine of everyone in this body and this country. As someone who's dedicated years of my career to education and striving to create a better future for children, I am appalled, but sadly not surprised, that this administration continues to terrorize children using the same playbook as when they separated families at the border. Let me be clear. According to the United States Supreme Court, all children, regardless of their immigration status, have the right to attend public schools. The ICE tactics we are seeing, targeting students and families, will have lasting effects on children, families, and they will cause generational trauma. I urge my colleagues to show some empathy, show some kindness, work with us to protect sensitive locations, work with us on humane immigration reform. We cannot allow these abuses of power and these lawless actions to continue. Let's put an end to this ugly chapter in our country's history and do better for our nation and our children. Thank you, and I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Washington, Mr. Bumgardner, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I rise today to celebrate $181 million in rural health care funding for the state of Washington. Not long ago, right here in this chamber, I joined my House Republican colleagues to pass the Working Families Tax Cut, the largest tax cut in American history. And when we voted for this, we also voted for a new rural health fund. And $181 million of this rural health care fund will go to transforming Washington State. And this is just the first round of funding. part of a 5-year, $50 billion commitment to rural health transformation.